What's up again, everybody? Today I have a very fun and very threadbare crackpot theory that I want to run by you because I've been thinking about it for the better part of a week, ever since something got posted here on the Living Legend page. And it is a very interesting thing that is not related at all in any way, shape, or form really to the Living Legend status right now of any of the current heroes. It has nothing to do with the point system change. We're not going to sit here and talk about the fact that Oldhim is going to be climbing these ranks, even though he's going to be climbing them slower because of the updates to the Living Legend status. We're not here for that because today we're here to talk about some very spicy, possibly absolutely nothing news, but I've been thinking about it a lot, and it all kind of hinges upon what we saw posted here. Yoji Royal Protector. Yoji Royal Protector is the name of a hero, presumably a Blitz hero, in this upcoming Dynasty set. And you can see what is most likely pictured here as Yoji the Royal Protector. And there's a couple reasons why we can assume that this is the Royal Protector, but let's just for a moment talk about the fact that Yoji here has no weapon, no signature weapon next to him, which is very interesting. Same thing with Emperor Drakai of Aesir, has no signature weapon next to him. The Emperor, we do actually know what the Emperor does. I made a video on the Emperor himself, which is really cool. And we did see that he was a Blitz hero, and using that naming convention, it means he's a only Blitz hero. We can kind of assume the same thing for Yoji, but that could also come to pass that it is, like a classic constructed hero. Nevertheless, whether it is only Blitz or only classic constructed, we can assume that this is Yoji the Royal Protector. And the reason that we can assume that this is Yoji the Royal Protector falls in the Emperor's storyline. So if you go to the Emperor's page with that cool looking Emperor animation and you click his actual story, the One Emperor, you scroll down enough and you can find this passage right here talking about Yoji, his captain of the Imperial Guard, might exact justice upon the dishonorable. Now, I am going to leave this page up because it does have some interesting other implications that we'll talk about related to this theory that I have. But let me posit this to you first. I believe, and this is most likely, I would say most likely true, I believe this with some amount of certainty, that these are not the only two heroes we will be getting in Dynasty. Now, we could get only these two heroes, and I could be wrong, but I do believe that we're going to get more than this, at least one more hero, and I will tell you who I think it is, but I will explain why beforehand. Now, whether or not Yoji is a Draconic Guardian, like I assumed at first, or perhaps something like a Draconic Warrior, which kind of would be cool as well, because he is sort of like a captain of a guard, that could be possible as well. Whether or not that's the case, I do think that we are getting at least one other hero, and the reasoning behind this falls on an interview that James White, the creator of Flesh and Blood, did about 2 months ago on the Eye of Ophidia French podcast, wherein towards the end of it, he was asked about new classes to the game of Flesh and Blood, that we hadn't seen a new class since Monarch being Illusionist, and if there were going to be any other new classes in the near future that were introduced. And one of the things he said was that in the Dynasty set, we are seeing the conflict from the perspective of the Royal Court. So instead of from Uprising, we're seeing the conflict from the Uprising's perspective, from Phi and Dromai. Here we're seeing the entire thing from the Royal Court, Emperor, and in this case, Yoji, Royal Protector. We're seeing it from their perspective. And I don't think they're the only two heroes that we will be seeing it from the perspective of, but my crackpot theory does have a hole in it, and it is well, let's put it this way. It's a pretty glaring hole, but I'm holding on to it just in case. Okay, so if we are seeing things from this perspective, then we are apparently, from James White's own words, and he was speaking off the cuff, so if this is not the case, then so be it. That is totally understandable. But he did say that we will be getting a hero in this set from a new class, and a class that's mentioned in the lore book. And that is a reason why I think that this hero right here, Yoji Royal Protector, is not the only hero that we're going to get, because we already have a guardian, and we already have a warrior. If we already know or already have experienced the class that Yoji represents, then that means we do have another hero or another class that will be introduced in this set. So we can actually go to the lore book, take a look at what is listed in said lore book, and try to surmise what we might find. So let's do that. So here is the lore book. This was just a beautiful book, absolutely fantastic book. I wish everyone could flip through this book. I really do, because it is a fantastic piece of art that you can just look at. But as we flip through to the beginning here, we have the World of Wraith, and the very next page has the professions. And these professions are technically some of the classes we've seen in the game. So let's break this down. The professions that are listed in the book thus far are Alchemist, Assassin, Guardian, Brute, Wizard, Bard, Illusionist, Ninja, Necromancer, Cleric, Warrior, and Ranger. And of the classes that I just mentioned, the ones that are in the game are Guardian, Brute, Wizard, technically Bard now because Yorick, Illusionist, Ninja, Warrior, and Ranger. So that leaves 4 classes that are mentioned on this page that could exist in this set. So if that's the case, which classes could actually exist in this set? Well, let's take a look at them. Alchemist, Assassin, Cleric, and Necromancer. If we are looking at this set from a perspective of the Royal Court, what could exist within the Royal Court? Well, Necromancer, possibly. And I'll tell you why possibly. Possibly because if you read Kano's lore page, there is something very strange going on with a large portion of the Royal Court right now, or perhaps preceding this event, because the Royal Court is basically being infiltrated by what can only be described as body snatchers. And we don't know why or how. So perhaps there's some necromancy related subject to that. Maybe the Demonastery is somehow infiltrated the full court elite. So that's a possibility. Cleric, hard to see, but could be. Hard to see, but could be. Alchemist, very interesting, very possible. That is a, put a little asterisk by Alchemist, because that actually could make a ton of sense if you had like a royal alchemist working for you. Now there, to my knowledge, has been no mention of a character that would serve that purpose in any of the lore, but I could see that. And then the one that I think everybody is thinking of that would be very clearly possible in this set would be Assassin. An Assassin is a really easy shoe-in fit for a class in a set where people are trying to usurp an emperor, right? It makes sense. But at the same time, it strikes me in a strange way, because why create an assassin character that goes and kills the emperor if you've already set up a storyline wherein a Phi character who's a leader of a resistance, could conceivably, based on the lore, team up with his half-sister, who is herself a very powerful illusionist, and part of the upper class, and then go overthrow the emperor from there. Like, it seems as though it would be an easy setup for that to be the case. Now, perhaps they have something more interesting, and imaginative that I am not picturing to this point for the storyline that we'll find within Dynasty. But to me, Assassin feels a little easy. A little easy. So what does that leave us? Where does that leave us with regards to this? And that's where things get a little bit interesting, because if you look at the lore they've already given us, and if you look through the book a little bit more clearly, with a little bit more of a fine-tooth comb, there's a couple of other little hints within this book that could lead to another class that isn't necessarily mentioned on that page, but can be more easily found in the book itself. And that class is a little bit hinted at here in the Tales of Aria set. When you look at things like, I think it's this page. I'm pretty sure it is this page. Yes, it is. The Everfest Carnival, which we have visited already, has a passage that says this. One of the most well-known sections of the Everfest is the Maela, a group of fortune tellers, seers, oracles, enchantresses, and conjurers. Those within the Maela have talents in the realm of magic, performing acts of mystery and enchantments for those with an open mind. And I want to stop and I just want to hover on this word, seers, because if we close this book and go back to the page, this is not the only time someone with the idea or with the ability to see things that are normally hidden is mentioned. So this takes us back to that exact portion of text that we were talking about a moment ago, and it kind of leads us to a different character that is also part of the royal court, that is also mentioned multiple times across multiple storylines, or stories I should say, within the lore itself. And that includes this guy. He surrounds himself with individuals of power and vision. With a click of his fingers, he could light every torch in the city so that Zathari, his Fireseer, might peer into every corner of Ashvahan. So this character, who is the Imperial Spy Master named Zathari, is a Fireseer, someone who can see in the flames passages to places or things that couldn't be normally discovered. You basically glimpse beyond and see what's going on past that. And Zathari here is mentioned in multiple places. Like if we go to this page, I'm just going to use this as a sort of like standard page to change things up. We go to Dromai's story, and we actually click the storyline, and I believe it's here in Dragons of Empire. Zathari is mentioned and is a main character in this entire storyline, because Zathari is the one who actually found and rediscovered the existence of Dromai, brought her back into the fold as a Drakai, bringing her to the capital city Ashvahan, raising her, quote unquote, and basically fostering her talents as an illusionist, and then basically throwing her out into the battle to try and, in this case, in this storyline, destroy, using her illusionist dragons, destroy the this giant sand wall that the Sand Folk have been keeping up for generations to push out invaders and push out the upper class. And Zathari then also encourages her to go and rescue a general who'd been kidnapped, and then also plays in heavily into the rest of the storyline. He is a Fireseer. He found her because of fire, and he could see her through the fire when she was young. And then he can see where the general is during the battle, so that Dromai can go and rescue her. So he has the capability and the ability to see through the flames where things are and who they are when other people wouldn't. So a seer in the royal court is a theory that I believe could come to fruition. Zathari the Spy Master could be a playable hero as a seer, and it doesn't stop there, because I have one more possible thread that we can pull on to see if this has any bearing, any way, shape, or form. Okay, so on the official Flesh and Blood Twitter page, this card was posted that is going to be given away at Worlds. Worlds takes place before the release of Dynasty, and Tales of Adventure fits within this Yorick theme and this Bard theme, this traveling Bard who's made it to Pro Tour 1 as a hero himself, and then in Pro Tour 2 you could have access to his loot, which is really cool because it kind of does some crazy stuff, and it's called the Hummingbird. And then in this card, his specialization, let's just read it. It says, each other hero chooses and creates a token that hasn't been chosen. Aether Ashwing, Embodiment of Earth, Embodiment of Lightning, Ponder, Quicken, Rune Chant, Seismic Surge, Soul Shackle, Spectral Shield, Zen State. You then create a copper, a silver, and a gold. Okay, so we know all of these except for Ponder. And what could a Ponder token do? That we have no clue. This is the first mention of any token ever being called Ponder. But what kind of hero would create a Ponder token. I'm going to tell you right now, I have a hard time believing that Yoji here, the Royal Protector, is the kind of guy that would create a Ponder token. He does not strike me as someone who would ponder. But you know someone who might ponder? I don't know, a spy master named Zathari. He might be someone to create a Ponder token, particularly if he's someone who's a Seer class. And what would a Seer class do? Well, I actually made a video about like 6 months ago or something about the possibility that Seer could be in Everfest, the class itself, which I still think could have existed. It didn't, but I mean, lore-wise, they were looking for a group of Seers called the Maela that we read about earlier, going into the Everfest Carnival. We don't know if they ever found them, and maybe we will learn that soon enough, but he could be his own type of Fireseer that we could have access to and introduce a Seer class, which isn't necessarily listed in the lore book as a profession, but it is mentioned multiple times in the lore book. Now, there's one major problem with Zathari being the new hero, and that's because he's freaking dead. Zathari is 100% dead unless he had some random trick up his sleeve that we find out about later. Dromai made a giant purple dragon that we don't have a name for come out of the ground and eat the man whole. Ate him alive, made him completely disappear. Zathari is not alive. But if this set is taking place and walking us up to the point where the two sides clash, perhaps we can play as a dead man. So that is a very large hill to climb. There's a very large rut to step over to have a Seer class in the game, but I do think that it very much could fit. Now, I want to also point this out. The idea of a Ponder token existing could also hint at someone like an alchemist being present in this set. And I do think that ultimately it makes a ton of sense thematically to include an assassin in a set where the royals are being overthrown. So I totally understand if assassin is the easy fit for a new class, and I think it would probably be really cool. I don't know what that would entail as far as, maybe some like weird cool on-hit effects, or, some extra special damage dealing effects that could happen, or maybe like a weird backstab thing that you could work through or work in. There could be some cool stuff regarding that. But nevertheless, if we're not getting an assassin, if assassin isn't the class that we're getting, I could definitely see them trying to make Ponder tokens and Royal Court Spy Masters and Fire Sight that they've hinted at in like all of the lore except for the part where the guy dies. Like, I could see them putting that all together in what could be a really cool class called the Seer. So am I completely off base here? Am I way out in the deep end? Let me know in a comment below, because I would love to see a Seer class eventually, and I don't know necessarily what it would do, but I bet you it would involve opting, and that would be awesome. So if you enjoyed this like slight rant of complete out of left field thinking, feel free to make that number climb slightly higher, or let me know what you think in a comment below. What class or what hero would you most like to see in this upcoming Dynasty set? As always, thanks for watching.